Thank you for listening to another episode of Remake Rewind, the podcast where we decide if remakes or reboots should have happened. I'm Mike, as always. With me, I've got my buddy Alex. How you doing, man?
Hey!
Oh no, we're gonna get copyright struck.
Oh yeah, I'm doing good, Mike. I'm not a clown.
You look like one, but
Mike is joking on me because I just dyed my hair.
I can't really see it because you're blurring your background. Yeah, I can kind of just see the tips are blue. Just the tips, though.
You know what's funny? The roots are, like the roots were my natural color, and usually I bleach them so I can get my whole head one color. And this time I was like, I don't feel like bleaching my hair, and I did like a halfway bleach that's like not as damaging, and I ended up having like light brown roots, which looks ridiculous on me, like almost red. But I knew I was gonna put purple over them, so I put purple over, and they're darker now, but the rest of my hair is like blue.
Ah. Yeah, it's pretty blue.
Purple.
It's pretty blue.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. Well, what are we going to be talking about today, bud?
Today we're talking about Pinocchio by Disney. Disney's Pinocchio, not Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Or the Jonathan Taylor Thomas one.
Or the Roberto Benigni one.
Yeah, none of those. Just the Disney ones.
Yeah.
It's been a very long time since I watched the animated one. I don't think I've watched it since I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah, same.
It's weird, and I was honestly expecting, something a lot more bizarre after watching Dumbo.
Yeah.
Because Dumbo was so bizarre. And not that this movie isn't bizarre. I've got a lot of questions about it. But this was a little bit more straightforward than I was expecting. And I don't know if that's disappointing or not, but I was expecting something weird.
Yeah, I had low expectations coming out of Dumbo. Not even that I hated Dumbo, just like it's weird and it feels very dated. And Pinocchio feels a little bit more timeless. Like that's something I'd be comfortable showing to my kid.
It was a little more timeless. Like there was only like one example of racism, I would say, in this in this movie.
Right, but even the humor, like just the way the story is told and stuff, it doesn't feel super dated. Like I feel like
no, it doesn't.
A modern day child could watch that and enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. And when we get into the new one, we'll talk about it. But like there are some big differences, but the core is very much the same. So I think you're right that it is mostly timeless, but I'm almost a little disappointed that this wasn't more weird. But it is what it is.
Well, Guillermo del Toro is coming out with one this year, so you can get your weirdness then.
Get our weirdness. Get my weird on. Do you want to summarize the first one or the second one?
Well, they're pretty much the same, but I'll do the first one.
Right.
Lonely woodworker Geppetto wishes upon a star for a puppet that he just finished to become a real boy. His wish is granted, and Pinocchio is set on an adventure to prove himself brave, truthful, and unselfish, with the promise of becoming a real boy if he can.
Oh,
it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
See, when I don't do it on the fly, I do okay.
Yeah, there you go, man. I like going off the cuff a little bit, but that's just my style.
I like a well-written log line.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Jiminy Cricket started out as a hobo.
Yeah, he sure does. Voiced by the same guy that did the old Jim Crow voice in
Jim
Dumbo.
Crow, yeah. And it's interesting because in this movie, everyone basically speaks with an American accent except for Stromboli. And then he's just they call him a gypsy at one point, and he's just really angry. And when he gets angry, he just speaks nonsense.
Like gibberish Italian, yeah. Like gibberish. It's clearly meant to be Italian, but it's not.
Yeah, but it's just gibberish. And then he has an Italian accent, but like Pinocchio, American accent. Mm-hmm. Jiminy Cricket, American accent. Like
Jiminy Cricket is like American. From New York.
Yeah, like it's all American accents of some kind of variety. So you know what? It's 1940 Disney. Wouldn't expect anything else. But yeah, it was the beginning part of the movie confused me with him being a hobo. Didn't expect that. Did you get the vibe that the fish kind of wanted to fuck Pinocchio?
The whole movie is so horny.
It's a super horny movie. Like Jiminy Cricket, like is kind of turned on by the fish. He's turned on by like a wooden figure on a cuckoo clock.
To be fair, he's living on the streets. He's probably not getting laid.
Yeah, everything's a fifi.
Yeah, the fish is slutty. The fish.
Well, I wasn't gonna go that way. I'm not like shaming anything.
I'm not shaming. You can say slutty without it being shaming.
I don't know, man.
I mean, I know, and I'm telling you. The fish and the cat want to fuck each other at some point. Jiminy Cricket is always like touching little wood characters' asses and stuff.
He's thirsty for the Blue Fairy.
The Stromboli dancers, yeah, that's right. The Stromboli dancers are like bumping butts and stuff. Stromboli does an impression of some dancers, and
Yeah.
like they give him like thick ass cheeks.
Yeah, they do.
It's a really horny movie.
It's super horny. It's super weird, and then like, there's no real reason why Geppetto wants. He's objectively a 60-year-old man who wants a child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not gonna judge. But he's got a very noisy workshop. Jiminy Cricket like loses his mind over all the ticking, and he's just like, quiet, and then everything goes silent. So there's some sort of magic in the world.
Listen, if you keep on pulling this thread, you're gonna pull apart the whole sweater, buddy.
No, I'm just saying this is a world. I'm just establishing this is a world where magic clearly exists, because nobody questions a wooden boy.
There's a talking fox.
Yeah, there's anthropomorphic animals. Like, nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care that there's a wooden boy that's going around.
Yeah.
It's the born hot yesterday kind of motif. Like, he's just born and they send him off into the world and expect him to be fine. It's clearly a world where magic exists.
Yeah.
Monstro is a sea monster that's a giant whale.
I like that guy. And
everyone knows what it is, and they just accept that there's this monster that's roaming the ocean.
Yeah.
So,
it's a fairy tale.
It's a fairy tale. So, they establish some. They just established that nothing's going to work. So I guess that it's going to answer most of my questions. Yeah. But what are some highlights for you? Because I've got a lot of questions.
I was pretty impressed with the animation. I think I said that for Dumbo as well, but this actually came out 2 years before Dumbo. And like the parallax effect in the beginning, and they end up using it throughout. But like right off the bat, you can see that they're animating two different planes of reality or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're moving at different speeds. So it gives it like a 3D look. And that's just like, I don't know the history of animation, but that feels pretty cool for 1940.
No, to your point, the animation actually was better in this movie, and it had more of a budget. We talked about it when we did Dumbo. They slashed the budget because both this movie and Fantasia basically didn't make any money because of World War II. This did have a re-release in 1945 where it made a ton of money, but the first few years it didn't. So that's why Dumbo had a much smaller budget, and the animation wasn't quite as good as this one. But yeah, the animation was on point.
Yeah, it was cool. I mentioned the parallax, but also just like the dancing sequences and stuff. Like, it's so smooth and well done.
Yeah,
artistic.
Well, then they work with him being a puppet. There's a point where like Geppetto's like, "Oh, turn around so I can see you," and he turns around and like his body moves, but his head is facing the same direction.
They do that gag a few times in the new one,
and it looks really good for animation. Like, there is a 3D effect, even though it's 2D as he's spinning around. Like, I can't argue with the production value of this film. Any plot points you want to talk about, or I'm just going to start shooting some questions that don't make a ton of sense to me.
Let me think. Plot points. I thought, I know that we're in a world of imagination here, and a fantasy land and stuff, but I thought it was funny that the Honest John, the fox, was so impressed by Pinocchio being a wooden living boy. It's like, bro, you're literally a talking fox. Like, you're trying to sell Pinocchio into slavery. You're a talking fox. You can make a ton of money.
You're right. Well, but the thing is, they had like a con before where his little cat sidekick, they pretended he was a puppet for Stromboli once before. So it's like, he's got this weird thing about puppets and having puppet shows. So maybe that's why he's so impressed. But bringing up Stromboli, there's that point where, Stromboli, throws Pinocchio a coin, and Pinocchio's all excited, like, holy crap, I made money. I'm so excited. I'm going to go tell Papa. And he's like, no, bro, you got to stay here. And when you get too old, I'm going to turn you into firewood.
Yeah.
So that leads me to believe that Pinocchio is not the first of his kind. Stromboli has encountered a magical puppet boy before, and that these magic puppet boys actually grow old and stop being cute.
I see where you can infer that. I think that Stromboli just means that when a puppet gets worn out, he gets rid of it.
Maybe.
But it could have been clearer in the film. I don't think I have any plot points, really. I think when I went into this movie, I actually heard somebody talking about it recently. There was a comedian doing a bit about about Monstro or something. Somebody said that their kid likes the movie because of Monstro, and they don't really care about the rest of the movie. And I thought that was funny.
Monstro is cool looking.
Monstro is super cool. But I went into this movie thinking that it would be a little bit of a mess plot-wise. And as I was watching, I was like, oh, this is just like a series of adventures. and he learns how to be a real boy at the end. That actually makes more sense.
Well,
they do feel like they feel almost unconnected going in the beginning, but I think by the end it's just like, oh yeah, he went on an adventure.
Well, I feel we'll talk about the newer one eventually, but I think there's a little bit more of a thread that pulls this one along, because like as he moves from one adventure to the next, there's Honest John, who actually takes him to Stromboli and then also human traffics him to
right.
Pleasure Land or whatever it's called. But
this one feels a little bit more like segmented to me than the new one. Actually, I felt like this one felt a little bit more like chapters in a book.
That's interesting. I don't disagree. It is definitely segmented, but I do feel like there was something that moved. There was more. I want to say he had more agency in choosing what was going on in this version than the new version, and we'll get into it when we get into the new version. But one of the things that I thought was odd, and I had no idea, because Pinocchio is a huge pop culture icon. There's been we named like 4 different versions at the beginning of the episode. Shrek has Pinocchio, but you always see just the nose growing. You see it in like Geico commercials and shit like that too. But in this, it's not just that his nose grows. Like, he has magic powers, and that when his nose grows, and he makes like the most absurd lies. Like, after he's trying to escape from Stromboli, the blue fairy shows up and is like, "I'll help you this one time." And I'm like, first off, why? You created this creature with sentience and somewhat, of an intelligence, and then leave him out in the world with no training on how to be a person. Maybe a little bit more guidance is needed.
Yeah, how about you get him home?
Yeah, he's lying. He's like, "Oh yeah, we got put in sacks, and I got chopped into firewood," and like all these obviously stupid lies. But his nose keeps getting bigger. But as it gets bigger, it starts acting more like a tree, and like leaves sprout out, and then it gets a little bigger, and then it's a branch, and then it gets a little bigger, and there's birds.
He created life.
Nest. He created life. He is a god.
Yeah,
it's insane. So that's another little thing that I was like, whatever.
Mike, you can't nitpick this one.
I just say there's interesting things, and I think he's a god.
I mean, yeah, he's a talking doll.
A lot of the stuff
he's kind of like Ultron, who is a god.
Yeah, huh? Yeah. I mean, Ultron borrowed from this and had I've got no strings. Bum, 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 bum.
That's where I was going with it.
Yeah. The only other question I have, because everything else that I have is a counter to the new one, so I don't really want to say anything else. Jiminy Cricket can breathe underwater.
A lot of insects can breathe underwater for a long time, or they can hold their breath. I think ants can hold their breath for like 12 hours.
Yeah, that seemed like a pretty excessive, especially for going down to the bottom.
Well,
like,
if we're talking about being underwater, Monstro is sleeping at the bottom of the ocean. I do not think that's what whales do.
They could stay down there for hours, though. But you're right.
So can insects. I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't think that whales like hang out on the sea floor.
I'll give them a pass on this one.
I mean, if that's all you have, maybe I'll just shotgun some of my notes here. Geppetto looks like Super Mario Sr.
Yeah.
The Queen from Alice in Wonderland is in Geppetto's shop. Pinocchio in the original movie looks a bit like Tom Hanks. The fairy is...
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
I can feel you.
The blue fairy is like very clearly traced real actor, and I think that's super cool. I did not realize how little of this movie the lying nose growing thing was.
Yeah, I expected a lot more, because that's when you think Pinocchio, you think nose growing.
Mm-hmm. Geppetto is in his honk shoe era.
Okay.
His 3 a.m. dance party when the kid comes to life is like understandable because that's a miracle, but also like his neighbors must have been furious. I like how annoyed Figaro is when she's just trying to go to sleep. She's like, yeah, it's a real kid, whatever. I need to get my shut eye.
Need my 18 hours.
Yeah. Geppetto in this version has not thought through what's going on at all. In the morning, he's like, "You're going to school." Bro, he doesn't know what school is. He doesn't know what a road is. He doesn't know what this town is. He's never seen the sun. You need to let him live inside the house for a couple days before you send him off.
Yeah, set him up for him and the Blue Fairy. Set him up for failure.
Yeah. We kind of touched on the like Disney racism, offensive stuff, and this movie's like weirdly kind of anti-poor. There's like the trope of the noble hobo going on with Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah,
it feels a little weird. And Stromboli is kind of offensive too. Like it's a cartoon, so they're going to be caricatures, and it's a 1940s, so it's over this time or whatever. Yeah, the gypsy thing, and also like they give him like very big defined lips that doesn't feel. I don't love that.
No, Stromboli's definitely a racist character.
Yeah, and he's like a miser, and he's got a big nose.
Yeah.
And you know, Geppetto is Italian too. Like this whole thing takes place in Florence.
Yeah.
But Stromboli is like, he sounded like Kramer on Seinfeld when he starts speaking gibberish. Did you guys get to that episode yet when they cook his the pizza place cooks his
no,
clothing
not yet.
With their
calzone? Not yet.
Jiminy Cricket's really bad at his job. That maintains in the new one.
And I've got some things I want to say, but I want to compare it to the new one before I don't want to say it here. I want to say it in the new one. So
Sure.
We'll get there.
A boy who won't be good might as well be made of wood.
I like it.
I'm bummed that's not in the new one. That was a good one.
That was a good line. Pretty shitty though, considering she gave him no coping skills.
I know. I don't know what they call him in the original one. The English guy that's collecting the boys for Pleasure Island.
That's the coachman.
The coachman. That whole thing is strange. He's just like collecting dumb boys for Pleasure Island. Like what? Nobody realizes what's going on. All these kids are going missing.
Originally, I wasn't going to bring it up until the other one, but I guess we can because Honest John in the new one stops after he delivers Pinocchio to Stromboli. He doesn't show back up again. In this version, he is also the one who got him with the coachman and sent Pinocchio off to Pleasure Island. But at least in this version, there is a conversation. Like Honest John is like totally on board with killing someone. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna give me a ton of money?" He's like, "Who do I gotta?" And then he's like, "Oh no, I want boys for Pleasure Island." And he's like, "Ooh, I don't feel good about the trafficking."
Yeah, he's trying to Epstein him.
Yeah, and he's like, "What about the law?" And they're like, the law never shows up there. And then you can tell that he's kind of afraid of the coachman. He's like, "All right, fine, I'll do some human trafficking." But at least there's a little bit of like, "Ooh, I don't feel good about this. I'll do it, but I'm not gonna like it." So at least there was a little bit of a conversation about it.
Yeah. Well, let's come back to that in the new one because Honest John doesn't show up. I feel like it's not even it's not like a 1-to-1 thing.
It's different. Yeah. We get the coachman's bigger roles, but we'll go into it.
I really like the 8-ball bar.
Yeah.
The bar they go to and they play pool and drink and stuff is a big 8-ball. I think that's super cool.
Another thing where minors are drinking beer, just like in Dumbo is champagne.
Right.
Yeah.
Also sanitized for the new version.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question for both of the movies. What is the upkeep of Pleasure Island and how does selling donkeys pay for it?
I had that question as well. It makes zero sense because it seems like, it's not even a night's worth of stuff. Why not just kidnap them? Do they need to do the debauchery to transform? I don't understand what the mechanism for the transformation is. They basically like, well, if you act like a jackass, you'll become a jackass.
Right.
So I guess they need it. But yeah, that would be incredibly expensive to maintain an amusement park, essentially, like having Disneyland function just to make slave labor.
Yeah. It's doesn't stand up to
the overhead is very high.
That's right. The donkey stuff is very Cronenberg-esque, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll save it for the just another difference, but I'll save it for the new one because it's actually I think something I like about the new one. But everything else I want to talk about the new one. So
I'm done on that one.
All right. Well, what have you been up to, bud?
Oh, well, sir. We've been watching some stuff. Let's see. What was the last thing we watched? Producers. So I watched Heat, the definitive director's edition.
Oh,
it's so fucking good, man. That's such a good movie.
How long is the director's cut? Like 4 hours instead of like 3.5?
It doesn't add that much. A lot of it was the way he color graded it. Like he added more blue.
Yeah. Got it.
That movie's incredible though. I haven't seen it.
It really is.
Like 10 years. So hey, if we're gonna watch something in your theater, that's the one.
Okay.
That segment.
The shootout.
The shootout. Like they recorded real gunfire in downtown LA, and it's so fucking loud, and it goes on for so long.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It's an insane scene.
Yeah. I watched Paddington 2, which is delightful.
Delightful.
Even though Paddington is a filthy monarchist. Hot Fuzz. I expected a bigger laugh for Paddington, by the way.
I watched Hot Fuzz too.
Sick. It's a good movie.
It's like the third time this year I've watched it.
Hell yeah. I finished I think I might have told you this, but I finished the Clark Collis book you've got read on you about the
Yep.
making of Shaun of the Dead. So this is continuing our marathon of Edgar Wright movies. We watched The World's End a couple days later, actually.
Fucking love it.
Yeah, also great. Which one of those three is your favorite?
It bounces back and forth between Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. And I love The World's End, but it is a distant third.
I feel like the older I get, the more I like The World's End.
Oh, I love the movie, but...
No, I'm saying the more I like it, though.
Yeah.
I always loved it.
Yeah, but Hot Fuzz is just... I notice a joke in Hot Fuzz that I don't notice every time I watch it. I watch it like 3 times a year, and I still find something new every time I watch it.
I think The World's End is like the most emotionally resonant of the three.
That's fair. No, absolutely. Like it hits the heartstrings so much more with like Simon Pegg's character whole arc and what you find out about his like mental health and whatnot. It's definitely,
and knowing that Simon Pegg has dealt with his share of alcoholism.
Absolutely.
We watched Orphan. The new one came out, and I realized I'd never watched the original, so check that out.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm scared to watch the new one. She's supposed to be younger, but the actress is like much older.
Huh.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Nice.
We did not watch Baby Driver yet. I think that's coming this week. I'm holding off a little bit, man. It's that movie is the cast is a little rapey.
I watched it not too long ago, and god damn, the movie holds up. But I totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. We watched Elvis, the new Elvis movie. It's called Elvis.
I think they were too nice to him.
You think they were too nice to him?
Yeah, I think they let him off the hook for so much.
It was
the
more
fact that he started dating Priscilla at 14 in real life.
Yeah, that was bad. And she does not look 14 in the movie.
Oh
at
no,
all. Like that
she
is
looks 30.
That is I was gonna say that's a 20-year-old woman for sure. I think the actress is 22. No, I expected them to be to let him off the hook more for making a fortune off the backs of black musicians who never got paid for their work, but they're actually really upfront about that. And he sort of pays homage and makes it seem like it wasn't so bad. It makes him seem like he's aware of it for sure.
Yeah,
he gives people opportunities. I think. I thought Austin Butler was fantastic.
Oh,
like I really like the movie, but yeah, I think you're right. I think they let him off the hook for some stuff, and the Priscilla thing is really like, it's hard to look past that. But Austin Butler was so good. I was like, I think my jaw dropped during the revival performance when he's in the white suit and he does the protest song. Oh my god! And then I watched it back to back. I watched a few of the performances back to back with the original performances, and he's just like so on point.
He's fantastic.
He nails the whole thing, and he does most of the singing in the movie too. He sounds so good.
Yeah, he's fantastic. All the performances were great.
Yeah. I thought Tom Hanks, who was also in that, was going to be goofy. Like the trailer made it seem like Tom Hanks was doing this like caricature.
He was great.
Yeah, he was so good, and I love that it's being told from the perspective of like from an unreliable narrator. And maybe I think that's kind of I think it's a little bit of having your cake and eating it too with the Priscilla thing, because it's from the perspective of Tom,
of a terrible person.
Right. But also like, hey, Boz, you're in charge of this.
Yeah,
that's your voice too, a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I love Baz Luhrmann, one of my favorite directors. But I would have hoped he would have had some commentary on that.
Right. Well, she's still alive, so and I think she's involved with it to some extent. So
yeah.
And then Malignant was the last one that we watched.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna turn and burn through a lot of these because I had an international trip, so I had a full day on airplanes, so I had plenty of time to watch things. So I watched Light and Magic, that documentary on Disney Plus about how Industrial Light and Magic got its start and where it ends. My God, the best documentary I've ever watched on special effects. And there's some heartbreak in it. Like there are people who started Industrial Light and Magic who got pushed out of the company because they refused to learn the new techniques. It was like both heartbreaking and also like, well, you had your shot. But honestly, some of the best. I thought I knew about all this stuff, but there were so many things about the special effects I'd never seen before. Fantastic. Watched the Roadrunner, the documentary on Anthony Bourdain. I really liked it. He was not a perfect person. He never thought he was. So it was a very honest movie about him, it didn't make him like a saint or anything. So definitely worth a watch.
I saw when the Queen died, I saw a thing where Bourdain was sitting with people who toasted to the Queen, and he refused to, and he's like, "I hate the fucking monarchy, man." And I was like, "Yeah, love Bourdain."
No, he's great. I already mentioned watch Hot Fuzz. Still watching She-Hulk. I rewatched Everything Everywhere All at Once. My God, that's a great movie.
So good.
I watched Batman and Robin on the airplane because I watched Batman Forever not too long ago, so I'm like, yeah, I might as well. Watch The Sandlot, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent again.
Hell yeah.
God, I fucking love it. Watched Moonfall the way it was meant to be seen on an airplane.
I like
God
Moonfall.
damn, that was a terrible movie.
I wish they made a trilogy of those.
It's so fucking bad.
I know, but it's batshit. It like goes for it, and I love that.
Oh my God, it was so bad. Watched The Batman again.
Yeah.
Watched Iron Man.
Hell yeah.
Watched a few episodes and then abandoned True Blood because it's not good.
Oh, that's fun, man. It's so campy.
We watched like 5 episodes of it and we're just like, God, this is so bad. The accents are so bad. And just the constant, like every 30 seconds, somebody with fangs going into the screen in extreme close-ups. It's just, no. Maybe at the time it would have been good, but I never watched it at the time, so no. Watched The Matrix.
Hell yeah.
Watched Chip and Dale, the Rescue Rangers, the new version.
Fuck yeah.
Oh my God, it was amazing.
It's so
I
good.
had such a good time with that movie. Jerry Maguire.
Hell yeah.
3,000 Years of Longing, which was great. Not what I expected it to be, but was great.
Still haven't seen it, yeah.
Go see it now because most of the theaters are down to like 1 showing. So
yeah,
if you're going to see it, you got to go now. I think that's everything.
Sick.
Yeah.
Where are you at with She-Hulk?
I'm caught up.
No, I mean, are you enjoying it?
I like it. It's. I wish there was a little bit more action to it, but I am enjoying it on the whole.
Cool.
All right, Pinocchio 2022. I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
Here's another woke ass live action. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's another one of the live action remakes of the Disney classics starring Tom Hanks. The meat and bones are the same. You know, Geppetto wishes that he could have a son. Pinocchio comes to life and has to learn how to be brave, truthful, and unselfish, but so he can become a real boy. The ending of this movie is a little bit more ambiguous, and we do get a little bit more backstory in Geppetto. You know, it's heavily implied that he had a son that died, and he's looking for a replacement son to replace his dead kid. And yeah, that's the movie.
I was looking through YouTube reviews of this just to kind of get a sense of what other people were saying, and I saw somebody say Disney's woke Pinocchio fails, blah blah blah. And what's woke about this?
So the only thing that I can see that's woke, well, typically when people complain about woke, it's always like a race thing,
right? Like the Little Mermaid.
They did add a black character, the ballerina puppet.
Well, they added 2 black characters.
They made the blue fairy black,
right? God forbid.
And reduced the Blue Fairy's role quite a bit. So that was interesting. And then at the end of the movie, instead of him actually becoming a real boy, like in the cartoon you see him become a real boy, in this, Jiminy Cricket goes, and if you hear the stories, they'll say that, you know, he became a real boy. Like he's doing like, he may have become a real boy. I don't know about that, but I know he was like a real boy in his heart. And then it's ambiguous, like, because they start walking away, and then the sun, like the light goes up, so it looks like his legs smooth out a little bit, like potentially.
I thought it was pretty clear that they became flesh.
Yeah, well, so
he was made flesh.
They have said that it's supposed to be ambiguous.
Yeah,
So,
it didn't feel ambiguous to me. I was like, Jiminy Cricket says that, and I was like, oh, but he clearly turned into it once.
I saw the legs smooth out, but like his size didn't change. So like I don't know, you know. I'm cool with it, but that's the other woke part. Like, some people are like, is it a trans allegory? Like, it's a bad thing if it is.
Okay. The black thing is kind of funny because I got news for you about the geographical location of Italy.
It's pretty damn close to Africa.
It really is.
It's just a hop, skip, and
a swim.
Right there.
Hop, skip, and a swim.
Yep, it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, but it's not like it's not like the Little Mermaid, which is fucking stupid as well. But
I agree.
But
at least we're not saying it's fucking stupid that she's black. We're saying it's stupid that there's a controversy around it. We're totally on board with it.
Yeah. But at least when they're making that argument, I don't see what they're saying, but I understand the argument. When you say Pinocchio is woke, I'm like, what are you talking about? It's literally the same thing.
Yeah, it's 99% the same.
So yeah, man, let's get into it. How did you like that narrator meta intro with Jiminy Cricket?
I didn't hate it, but I have one question for you. If they are going to hire Joseph Gordon-Levitt to do a voice and it not be recognizable, two questions. Why not just get a different voice actor?
Get
Second
a person.
question. Why not make it just Jack McBrayer if you're going to have Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing Jack McBrayer?
That's really funny. That's true. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, as far as I know, is not a voice actor. I don't think he did a bad job in this film necessarily, but it wasn't recognizably him.
No, it wasn't.
Like, why have his name on the poster? And if, just get a voice actor, someone who actually does voice acting.
Right. Or Jack McBrayer, because he sounded exactly like him.
Yeah. This, so overall, I enjoyed the remake.
I did too.
I think I have a couple questions about, the overall message. I think it gets a little diluted.
I agree.
But it also, like, I had to really sit there and think about it and be like, oh, I guess the message is not really there. That could have been better. But in the moment, I mostly enjoyed it. I think it was a pretty faithful remake to the original.
Yeah.
All the acting is pretty good. The songs are good. But the first, 3 minutes really set me up to not like the movie. The narrator, Jiminy Cricket, if you haven't seen it, Jiminy Cricket narrates the movie, but he's also a character in the movie, and he breaks the fourth wall and talks. But sometimes, but in the first couple minutes, he's narrating the movie as he is also walking and not talking, and then he's sort of having a conversation with himself. One version being the narrator, and the other version being the one that you see on screen. And it's just very Rick and Morty. It's very up its own ass, and it's just not what this movie is. I was like, this belongs in an episode of Rick and Morty or something.
And it's odd because they only did it essentially the one time, and then he breaks the fourth wall, kind of. I mean, he's the narrator, but he looks at us and he's like, I don't know if that's true or not. But if you're gonna do a shtick, why not do it more than once? Why doesn't he talk to himself a couple of times?
Nobody is questioning him breaking the fourth wall throughout the movie. You don't need to call attention to it in the beginning.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know what the point of it was. I agree with you. It was a little odd.
Yeah, and then also, like you said, I realized it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and I was like, oh, it doesn't sound like him. That's distracting and weird. Okay, and then every time he hops, he makes a little chirpy noise, and it didn't bother me later in the movie, but again, right in the beginning, it just threw me off. I was like, what is going on? This is such a weird choice.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he's on fire for a minute. He warms his butt on the ember, the coal.
Which he does in the cartoon, but he doesn't catch on fire.
But then he catches on fire, and he scales a wall and goes on to other business while he's on fire. And I'm like, when is this coming back? He's on fire. What's happening right now?
I was.
And then just puts it out, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, because he's climbing up all these wooden clocks, and this is kind of cool. The wooden clocks are all a collection of Disney characters. So there's Woody and Bullseye from Toy Story. There's one that's Donald Duck. There's one that's Roger Rabbit and Jessica, which of course Robert Zemeckis directed Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's the owl from The Sword and the Stone. There's Princess Aurora and Maleficent, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then the rest of the clocks were actually clocks that you saw on the wall in the original cartoon.
There's also
he's climbing those.
There's also Dumbo and the Lion King.
Yep. But he I was expecting the fire to do something.
Yeah.
Because why even show it? And then it added nothing.
Yeah, right after that though, I started feeling like it was pretty charming when you sit down with Geppetto, Tom Hanks's version, a little bit, and I think this version makes it more clear that he is, a sad old man who has potentially lost a son or something, and I felt like it started to get kind of charming after that.
Well, they did a little bit more with the Born yesterday, him not when she does the magic, it's not perfect. He's just repeating what Jiminy Cricket says.
That was annoying.
And then he's repeating what the Blue Fairy says. Then she's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't give you a fucking brain. Tap. Okay, now you got a brain and a personality now." And it was a little different because I thought, when she does the spell, it bounces off the photo of the boy, and then hits him. So I thought, oh, is this going to be a reincarnation of the son? Because that's a little weird. I could get on board if it makes sense, but it wasn't that. I was like, what was the reason for having it bounce off the photo?
Yeah, and she says oh, Geppetto wished for something, but it got his thoughts were tangled, so it got misinterpreted or something. And that felt kind of unexplained. I get the general meaning, but it was a little confusing in execution.
Yeah. I did the scene, I like that there's a little montage song of him being this basic stuff about life. So it wasn't just oh, I'm going to send you off into the world tomorrow to go to school, which he ultimately does.
It seemed like a week or so passed.
Yeah, it seems like there was a little bit of time of him like learning a little bit about life, and he goes off and he's like running to school and he like kind of falls by a pile of shit, and he's just like, I can't wait to learn what this is, kind of thing.
That was funny.
And then
I like that one.
And then what I both liked and disliked, I don't want to say dislike, but one of the things that was different was, you know, he sees Keegan-Michael Key as Honest John, the anthropomorphic wolf, or not wolf, fox, and he's like, oh shit, a puppet without strings, I'm gonna like make you famous, and he's immediately like, oh no, Dad said I should go to school, so I'm gonna go right on to school, and like he goes, and then the school's like, nah, fuck off, this is for like real boys, and he's just like, well, I tried to do what my dad said to do, and this guy gave me an alternative, so I'm going to go do the alternative. Where in the first movie, he's just like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to be famous. Like, he falls for the temptation.
Right.
Like, in this movie, he immediately is like, well, no, I'm going to do the good thing. Oh, well, I couldn't do the good thing, so now I'm going to go do this alternate thing.
Yeah, it takes, you said it takes away some agency from him, and it confuses the message of the movie, because later on, you know, he lies and his nose grows, but that's how he gets out of Stromboli's cage, is by telling lies.
He tells one lie, legitimately, and then he goes, oh, shit, my nose grows.
Oh, no,
he just keeps...
I think he told a few before he realized.
Yeah.
I think just the last one was on purpose.
Yeah, no, the last one definitely was on purpose, but, you know, the lies weren't as like ridiculous as the lies in the first movie.
But you know, the message is you're not supposed to lie. It's bad.
Yeah.
And in this movie, if he didn't lie, he would still be stuck in the cage.
Yeah.
So that's confusing. The teacher kicks him out, and he doesn't get to go to school even though he tried. And when he goes to Pleasure Island, he doesn't really partake in anything. Like the moment he gets there, he's like, oh, something's off about this. And then people are breaking all the clocks, and he's like, oh, this doesn't feel right. I don't want to do that.
Well, and he doesn't even choose to go. Like he's grabbed and put onto the cart.
Right.
And it's like, oh, you're on your way.
Well, no, they give him like a soft out, right? Like Luke Evans sings that song and sort of convinces him, but he has sort of a choice there, but it's not as much as the first one.
It's a little looser. It's not like the first one where he's like, oh, you really need, you know, Honest John's like, you really need a vacation. Your dad's going to understand. And plus it's going to be really fun. So like he truly makes a choice. Where like you said, it's a soft out. Like he's already basically been abducted, and like
they make him feel better about being abducted.
Exactly. But no, you're right. Like the whole time he's just like, I'm not going to break any clocks. He doesn't even drink, and they make a big point like root beer. Like every time they say beer, like and root is candy. Significantly louder.
And it's candy instead of cigars.
Yeah. Which was another racist thing they took out. That was the other minor racist thing in the first one, is they had like a Native American like chief throwing cigars at the kids. Like,
I missed that.
Animatronic.
Yeah,
like when he gets into Pleasure Island, it's like an animatronic sign just throwing cigars to them. But yeah, in this he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink. He's just like, no, this is all bad. But yet he still turns slightly into the donkey. And what I thought was interesting about this is, you know, when his nose grows, it just keeps growing. It's just the wooden dowel. It doesn't have the leaves or the birds. And this, when he starts turning into the donkey, his ears are made out of wood, and the tail is segmented. Where in the cartoon, it was like furry and everything. Like he just grew donkey or so. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting stylistic choice to do that. But yeah, ultimately he was just like a good kid. Where in the previous movie, he was just like, being bad is fun. Like he explicitly says that, and then in this version,
being bad is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's weird. And then like so he eventually gets out. There's like these weird smoke monsters that like are not explained at all.
They're in the first one too.
Yeah, but it's like, no, the first one he had. I thought he had people helping him out. Were there smoke monsters?
I think they're more furry in the first one, but there's like dark creatures.
Yeah, I just assumed there was some other anthropomorphic animal since there were foxes. But in this, they're like actually wisps of smoke.
Yeah, straight Lost style.
Yeah, there's just like, you know, nothing really happens. The transformation is a little bit more terrifying in this version because it's live action. Yeah. We haven't even talked about the ballerina. I don't really feel like she added anything to the story all that. I mean, she helped him escape, but kind of.
I thought it was kind of. I thought it was kind of nice for him to have a peer.
Yeah.
I think that the woman that played the puppeteer was very charming.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't know how much it added, but I like that it was there.
Well, I guess the only thing it added was after he gets away from Pleasure Island, she comes and is like, hey, Stromboli got arrested for being an awful dude, and I got free, and I've got a little bit of money, so I'm going to do my own puppet show. I would love for you to be the main act. And he's also like, oh, fuck, I would love to be famous, but I got to go save my dad. And she's like, okay, that totally makes sense. Well, I'll be back in a year. I would love to see you in a year. And he's like, oh, totally. And does the right thing and goes to save his he finds out that.
And that's how he loses his donkey ears and tail.
Yeah, exactly, because he gives up on his dream. He's not selfish. He gets his regular ears and his lack of tail back. But, in this version, he finds his dad out on the ocean. He's there when he's swallowed by Monstro, which in this version is not a whale. It's a sea monster with like tentacles.
I like that.
I
More
don't
like
know
Cthulhu.
how I feel. Yeah, it's like a whale with Cthulhu arms.
I liked it.
It's weird. I don't know how I feel about it.
I think that this version leans more into being a fairy tale, more into being fantastical.
I guess, yeah. But in this version, like he, same thing. They build a fire to, get out and make it sneeze and whatnot. And then he
I did like that Geppetto was not trapped in there for what seemed like weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, then the first version, he was just like straight up like, well, we're just going to fish. Every time he goes to eat, we can catch some fish. We'll cook them. Like, he was completely like down to just survive the rest of his life in the monster. Even to the point
he
where,
was in this one too. He just not had been there for as long.
Yeah. Pinocchio starts like breaking like the cherries. He's like, where are we going to sit? And he's like, we're getting the fuck out of here, Dad.
Yeah.
But he gets out, but like the monster is catching up and he like has super speed legs, like he can just kick like Dash in the Incredibles.
That felt like something that they had to add because kids movies are so like high octane now, and like superhero movies and action movies are much more the norm. They had to have like a big chase scene, and I didn't super care for that. The CG was really bad during that scene too.
Yeah, it wasn't great. But yeah, he kicks his legs like hella fast and barely makes it to the cave on time where Monstro doesn't get them. And like that's basically the end of the movie. Oh, you're good. Does he become human? Does he not? Like we said at the beginning, it's a little ambiguous. You and I both think he ultimately does change.
Yeah.
The movie was fine.
It felt weird that they made the ending more ambiguous. I'm not really sure what that added to it or what the goal was.
I think the goal was supposed to be just like, you should be happy with who you are, and if you're a good person, then that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I guess.
But like, it was a little ham-fisted, but also not clear at the same time. It's weird.
It's weird that it's weird that the two big changes and complaints about the movie are that the messages about him being a good boy or whatever, learning lessons, and the payoff, becoming a real boy at the end, both get muddied. And that it's coming from Zemeckis, who's one of the greatest living directors, probably. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, maybe that's even high praise, but he's responsible for some historically popular movies.
Yeah, I mean, when you look, Forrest Gump and Back to the Future alone, get him up on that list. And then he's also, he did Flight, he did The Polar Express. Like he's done. We covered The Witches, and we even liked the remake of The Witches. We were some of the few people who actually liked the remake of The Witches. Yeah. Which of course, unfortunately, is gone. It was part of the Warner Brothers purge.
Right. I wonder if Disney just kind of noted this to death.
Yeah, maybe
not to death. That's not even fair, but noted their way out of making the message more clear.
It seems odd, like some of these, like so him and Chris Columbus kind of came up at the same time, like blew up around the same time. Chris Columbus was a couple years later with like Home Alone, but they had some hits in the early '90s at the same time, and the early 2000s. But like they've kind of been relegated to streaming movies now.
Yeah,
like Chris Columbus does the Kurt Russell Santa Claus movies, and it just seems odd that these like titans, like how did this movie not end up in theaters?
Yeah,
really. Lady and the Tramp I can kind of get, but like Dumbo is a key property that Disney has. Like it still has the ride at Disneyland.
The Disney theme is from Pinocchio.
Yeah,
which I didn't even realize.
Upon a star. Yeah, so it's so odd that you have Tom Hanks, Robert Zemeckis, and Pinocchio, three like powerhouses, and this wasn't in theaters.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with streaming and theatrical releases over the next like 5 years or so. Because Netflix just posted bad returns, and they're adding ads and stuff too, right? And HBO Max is going through whatever's happening over there. The future is uncertain.
Well, what's odd and what's really disappointing, and that actually a lot of the theater companies have actually called this out, and there have been a few, influencers, and I've actually seen articles in like Forbes and other, online things saying we're with exactly what you're saying, with a lot of these streaming companies like Netflix and HBO Max struggling with certain things and having 2 years of basically pipeline of movies not being able to come out because of the pandemic. Why is Q3 of 2022 so short on quote unquote good movies? Like, we've had some of the best movies I've seen in a long time come out in Q1 and Q2, but Q3 has had nothing major. And so all these people are like, Hollywood owes the theaters quality movies year round at this point. And it just seems odd that we haven't, like, they made a big deal about the Invitation being the #1 movie at the box office a couple weeks ago, and it premiered, and it only made $7 million. Yeah. It's a horror, like a small budget horror film.
And people talked about it for 3 days.
And how is that the biggest movie in Hollywood when we've got, we are coming off the back of, Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World, or Jurassic Park Dominion, or whatever it was called, Jurassic World Dominion. Like, how did we have all these huge movies in the summer and then not have something in August and September, and then we've got huge movies in November and December? It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, and I think that with Batgirl and all the other things that are being taken off of HBO Max that already came out, like we're talking about The Witches, the other Robert Zemeckis movie, that's not on HBO Max anymore, and it was straight to streaming.
American Pickle's gone.
So all these things weren't on Blu-ray. There's no physical evidence that they've existed, and it's the same with Netflix too. A movie comes out on Netflix, it generally doesn't come out on Blu-ray or DVD, with the exception of like The Irishman being on Criterion Collection. So I think that especially with the HBO Max thing, what's the word? It's coming much more to the surface, this idea that like, hey, if something doesn't come out in the theaters and go to Blu-ray afterwards, it could just get lost.
Yeah.
And that fucking sucks.
And we were talking about, I think it was on the producers episode, maybe whatever we covered before that, but we were talking about how Matt Damon had this big thing on the when he's eating the peppers, that the theater has changed to the point where it has to make $1 billion now, or it's not profitable because movies don't make money on streaming and there's no DVD release anymore. So what we were seeing for the last 5-6 years was like comedies were finding their place on streaming. Like, that was the only place you're going to see a comedy movie now. And now even streaming's not safe. So what does that mean for your smaller movies? What does this mean for your character-driven movies?
Right.
Your comedy, all that stuff. Like, are we just not going to get those anymore?
Yeah. And it's crazy because people still want to go to the theater. When the theaters opened back up earlier this year, like, AMC did well.
Yeah.
In addition to the Apes, that brought the company back from bankruptcy.
Yeah.
People still want to be in theaters. Top Gun, even
you just need to give them a reason.
Even Jurassic World did well.
Yeah. You just need to give them a reason. And like right now, Hollywood is not giving people a reason to go to the movies basically in August, September, and the early part of October.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. And not to say that there haven't been good movies out. Like, I've heard really great things about Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I really liked 3,000 Years of Longing, but nobody is seeing these movies.
Yeah, they're
in
like
large numbers.
Art house movies.
Yeah. So, there's some good movies coming out, but unfortunately nothing that's going to fill seats.
Yeah, I mean, that's more case to bring back the $40 million comedy or low budget action romp. They don't make those anymore, and like that's a way to pad your theatrical slate throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I just don't understand how they made the decision for this not to come into theaters. Now, that being said,
and I feel like nobody's talking about that either. I haven't heard anyone talk about why it's not in theaters.
I feel like it was like a safe thing. Like, honestly, the CGI was not as good as the CGI is in some of the other ones. Like, and I don't think this was as good as Aladdin. I don't think this was as good as Beauty and the Beast. Lion King is kind of its own thing because it's not truly a live action remake. It's photorealistic, but some of the soul was gone. But it seems odd that like this movie would have made money if they put it in theaters.
Yeah,
would it have made
I think
$1 billion? Maybe not, but 500 to 600 million, I think it would have.
And I think it's just a bad look for Disney that they don't have one of their premier properties in theaters.
And the same thing, like, I understand that they want to put stuff on Disney Plus, but like right now, Disney Plus has had a huge summer between She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Obi-Wan. We've got Andor coming out later this week.
Yeah, they didn't need this to come
it
out.
there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and we were watching. I mentioned Chip and Dale. Katrina and I were fucking dying watching that movie. From beginning to end, we were laughing our asses off.
Mm-hmm.
And if we really saw trailers for this, I think even Chip and Dale could have been a huge movie in theaters.
Yeah, 100%.
So it's really odd that they didn't put this in there. I don't think it would have made $1 billion, but I think this would have made 500, 600 million. It would have made its budget back and then some.
People are taking their kids to go see Pinocchio regardless of reviews.
Yeah.
They just would have gone.
And so I guess we should wrap this up. But from a remake standpoint, this was solid. And I've soapboxed on this before, so I'm not going to go into really any detail. A lot of people attack these Disney remakes as unnecessary. But the way I look at it is this isn't necessarily for me. This is for the next generation. I felt the same way about Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King. When I was a kid, I didn't like old movies. As an adult, I am going back and rewatching a lot of movies that I refused to watch as a kid because I didn't like old movies. So kids are like that. And so I think this is great that it's out there for the next generation. Is it a perfect remake? No, but it got the heart and soul. And visually it was cool for the most part. So I say it was worthwhile.
Yeah, I think so. I enjoyed it. Sorry, I'm thinking about the first one being such a horny movie. Yeah, no, I like this. I think it was worth remaking. I think they did a decent job with it. I think it could have baked for it a little bit longer, but
I agree.
I'd show it to my kid. I think they'd enjoy it more than the original.
Yeah.
Oh, did you notice that they had Pinocchio do a superhero landing?
Yes.
That was stupid.
Yeah. Well, just to point out the voice. Okay, this is my last note. It's very similar to one of my first notes. This movie's supposed to take place in Italy. Nobody's doing an Italian accent except for, once again, Stromboli. Pinocchio's an American
Tom Hanks
accent.
is doing an Italian accent half the time.
Kind of. But you have, it's just more like, it just seems like more like he's just doing a cartoon voice versus an accent of any kind. But they hired an English kid to do an American accent.
Yeah, I did not care for the kid's voice.
And granted, it was very similar to the original one, so it was whatever. But why not just get an American kid? I'm like, why did they not just get that Tremblay kid that they always get to voice things like this?
Yeah,
maybe he's getting too old. I don't know, but it seemed odd to get a British kid to do an American accent. Yeah, and I already harped on JGL, so I'll just leave it at that. But anything else, or are you ready to give us your plugs?
I liked Lorraine Bracco as the seagull. And I like that they literally paid her to go num 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 num. I thought that was funny. There's a new Guillermo del Toro version of Pinocchio coming out later this year, so I'm excited for that. I watched the trailer; it looks pretty good.
Let's watch that and the Jonathan Taylor Thomas one.
Let's just watch that.
We'll do another Pinocchio.
No,
episode.
just GDT. I'm not watching
the
Taylor Thomas one.
No, we're gonna watch 2 more Pinocchio movies.
You can watch 2 more. I will watch 1, and I will talk about that.
All right.
And I'll just react to you talking about the other one.
Give us your plugs, man.
I'm on the Instagrams at Dyslexic, DYSAlexIC. I'm on Twitter and Letterboxd at Pulisci, PULISCI. If you don't have Letterboxd, it's this really cool app where you can log your movies and review them and follow other people who watch movies and read their reviews about them. Letterboxd, if you're listening, we would love to be sponsored. And if you like wearing shirts, and you like film and TV, which I assume you do because you're listening to this, I sell some film and TV based shirts on Etsy. The store is called Burn the Scene Boutique, and if you use the code Remake Rewind, you can get a little discount.
Yeah, you can. And you guys can check out everything that's you can check out everything that's MDXpods related at MDXpods.com, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all at MDXpods. You can also support the show at patreon.com/MDXpods. And if you want just a different way of listening to it, it's just the audio with the still. But we're also on YouTube if that's how you listen to podcasts. So check us out there as well. And thanks for listening.
Being bad is a lot of fun.